Here we are, y'all. It's the very first Thursday of 2021. And what better way to wrap up your week than another edition of the 2-2 podcast? Listen, I am so glad you could join me today. We're continuing our series entitled I Am, which is kicking off our new year. And I don't want you to miss a moment of it. So with that being said, you know the move. Grab your friends, grab your family, grab your coworkers, grab those people you don't like as well. And also, don't forget to grab your notebook, laptop, iPad. You might want to take these notes. See you in a minute. Have you ever wanted to record a podcast but didn't know the way? Well, I've got good news. Let me tell you about something. It's called Anchor. And Anchor is the easiest way to record a podcast. Let me explain. It's absolutely free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So here's what I need you to do. Please download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode. As you heard on the intro, we are continuing the series called I Am. Just a quick little January kickoff series that really takes the time to discuss identity. We want to really solidify, reclaim, or gain for the first time a true form of our identity going into this year. If we could all be honest, redundancy aside, it's crazy. Everything was crazy last year. It's crazy and complicated. But here it is. Here's the part. And it's been crazy in the last few days. As we've seen. But in spite of all the craziness and the cataclysmic ordeals that we see, it is never too late to solidify, reclaim, and gain for the first time a true form of your identity. And so Tuesday, what I did was I did an episode. The first episode in this series was called 4 Words. And so I took 4 words, and this is just a brief recap before we get into what we're talking about today. I took 4 words, and these were 4 words that, if I could be honest, were things that I worked on at some point and didn't give full effort to in my own eyes. I didn't give it 110%. I go. Some days I gave it 85%. Other times I gave it like 65%. It was, other times I gave it 75. Other days I gave it 35%. But when you're dealing with some other issues, and you're trying to heal from a few things, and you've had a lot of time in the house, which a lot of us have, a whole lot of us have. When we've had a lot of time in the house, we find ourselves along with our proclivities and our issues. And so we had to deal with those a lot of those at the time, especially in the early stages between March and April or so. We had to deal with a lot, and then deal with some horrible things in this in the U.S. That we're still feeling the residual effects of right now. But there were 4 words, and I'll just recap these 4 words for you real quick before we get into the podcast. I don't want y'all to think I'm rambling and I don't have anything to say today, but I do, and we are going to get to it. So make sure you have your notebook. For those of you who did not listen to the episode on Tuesday, These 4 words are intentional, honest, authentic, and consistent. That's intentional, honest, authentic, and consistent. And of course, I asked a few questions with these words just to kind of keep myself and hold myself accountable about making sure to be intentional about the moves that I make, being honest about who I am and where I am in life, being authentic about who I about myself to myself, and am making sure that I'm doing the necessary things, not just once, not just twice, but every over and over. And so I encourage you to listen to that episode at your earliest convenience. Probably listen. I would say listen to that episode before you listen to this one. Yikes! If you're already listening to this episode, don't click off and play that first. Just listen to it. Listen to this one, and then listen to the next one, and then go from there. But definitely, I have 4 words with some questions, and so today, as I talk about questions, there were 3 things. Earlier this week, as I kind of introduced this series, I put 3 questions, 3 questions up on Instagram, and you'll get the Instagram tags at the end of this episode. And so, those questions, I believe, are important and integral and vital towards solidifying your identity in 2021 and just being able to grow and mature and be the best version of you, even in the worst of times and the toughest of times. It was really hard to be the best version of you because you were seeing the worst version of everybody else, and they were getting away with a lot. Sometimes. But I believe that, these questions are what can help in some way, shape, or form. And these questions kind of ask questions about the past version, the present version, and the future versions of yourself. Oops, sorry, y'all. But these questions, you gonna get the authentic real. We're not redoing anything. We're not cutting anything out. Sorry about that, bloopers. Here are the 3 questions that, once again, they ask a question of the past, present, and future versions of you. And write this down, if you will. Number 1, who were you before? It's a question of the past. Not questioning your past, a question of the past. Like questioning a question of your past. Well, like judging your past. But like, it asks the question, who were you before? And when I asked that question, I asked that question for this reason. Because everyone has a story of who they used to be. Whether it was good or whether it was bad, whether it was positive or negative, whether it was damaging or refreshing, or built or just constructive or destructive. This is a question I've literally asked myself. I literally have tried to ask myself a lot of times, like, who was I before? Who are you before? And oftentimes we need a reminder of where we should get back to, because it was a place of healing and solace and growth, or where we should never look back or to look back and go back to, because it was a place of pain and damage and malice and dissent and anything else you want to add to it, we will add to that. And sometimes our past can be brought up from, of course, past trauma. Things we went through growing up, things we endured when it comes to some of the connections that we have. That can happen. But it is okay to ask that question, like, who was I before? Because once again, I need that reminder that I can't go back to who I used to be before. You can't, looking back to move forward doesn't always work, because sometimes when you're not strong, when you're moving forward and you look, when you're moving forward, and you're not strong enough, and you decide to look back, then you start to get ideas that maybe it was better back where I was instead of where I'm supposed to go. I hate to. I don't know if this analogy fits. I don't know if this analogy and example fits, but I'm gonna try my best, as always. You know what they tell you when you're running track? Anybody that ever ran track or ever ran any race, to never look back, because it'll slow you down. But in this case, I want to say it like this. Never look back if you're not strong enough, because you'll want to go back. It'll make you want to quit because the road has been tough. But it is okay to question your past. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay to ask that question. Where were you? Who were you before? Where were you before? Because it leads on to this second question. Who did you become, or where are you now? See, in order to know where we are now, in order to, we have to know the progression between the past, the present, and the future. We need to know where we were, how far we've come, and how close we are. Where we were, how far we've come, and how far we have to go. In this case, we've got a long, long way to go. We got a long way to go between now and the end of this year. Of course, that goes without saying. We just got into the new year. I know what you're saying over there. Stevens, we literally just got into the new year, 7 days in. And you trying to remind us that we've got a long way to go. We know. I understand. But if you don't have that reminder of how far away how much you have to do, no, not a reminder, but if you're not reminded that you've made progress, but you have a long way to go, you'll think you're in a place that you're not. Oftentimes have a false reality of where you are currently, and how close you are towards reaching a goal, reaching that level of healing, because it takes time, and you have to understand the process, and the time it takes to get where you go, to get from the past to the present to the future. And so, who did you become? I asked myself this question a lot as well, because I have a testimony of who I was, what I've come through from birth to mid to late 20s. And, and so to see where I am in my early 30s, is nothing short of a blessing. Nothing short of a blessing. I should not be doing what I'm doing. And if anything else, if anybody else had an opinion on that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. But God had other plans, and I'm just letting somebody know who feels like that they're their wits end, that God has other plans for you, and you just continue to grind and continue to work hard, no matter what. Yeah, tough times may be tough. The road gets rough, but continue to work through anything and everything that you need to work through right now in the present. Because whether you think so or not, you have come a long way from who you used to be. You've come a mighty long way from who you used to be. And honestly, hey, keep working, keep grinding, keep going. But who did you become? Where are you now? You were here. Now you're here in the present. You were at this place. Now you're at this place. I want to know, are you better or worse off now than you were in the past? Are you better or are you in better standing or worse standing? Are you in a better place or a bad place from where you were in the past and where you are now? Just measure it. If you're in a bad place, you've got work to do. It's not the end. You've got work to do. If you're in a good place, don't get complacent. You've got work to do. The moral of the story is, no matter where you were in the past and where you are no matter the measure from where you were in the past to where you are now, you still got work to do. Whether it's good or bad, you still have work to do. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't get complacent. You can't get tired. Well, it's okay to be tired, but you just can't get complacent. You just refuse to settle. Keep pushing. No matter where you are. We all need to press forward. You got it, y'all? So we're asking that question again. Who were you before? Who did you become? Or better yet, where are you now? Who are you right now? What is the status of your identity right now? Are you still dealing with an identity crisis? Are you on the road to knowing who you truly are and who you truly called to be and what you're truly called to walk in? Who are you right now? And then number 3 is a question leading up to the future. And that question is, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? I constantly think about who I want to be, where I want to be 2 weeks from now, a month from now, a year from now, 5, 10, 20 years from now. And I want to be in a place where this has grown from a podcast into something that helps encourage millions across the globe. But I have to look at where I started, where I am, and where I started and where I am to have a vivid picture of where I want to be. How this all started to now. Yes, there's been a lot of success, but there's still work to do in the midst of that. And so in order to, write it down, but make sure you are doing the necessary things to implement what you wrote down. And a lot of the implementation doesn't take a financial contribution. Sometimes it just takes a little networking, a little time to work, a little time to work on your craft, whether that is writing. If you are a writer of material, do it. If you are a graphic designer, you're a budding graphic designer, work on it. Work on it until it's not just a hobby, it's a lifestyle. So again, I want you to ask these questions. Who are you before? Who are you now? And who do you want to be? A question of the past, the present, and the future. And I encourage you as well to add questions to these. Once again, like I said on Tuesday, I had 4 words. Some of you may only have one. Some of you may have a dozen. Some of you may only have 2, and some of you, just like me, only may have 4, and we'll find some along the way. So I encourage you to, continue to ask questions of yourself, about your identity, about your purpose. Ask questions. Be prayerful. Prayer still works. Yeah, I know it's been chaotic, but prayer still works. And I encourage you to pray about it. Like, one thing is for certain. It's just like, wherever I am, whatever is not supposed to be there, whether that is a connection that I had that the only reason I got it was because I was in a false form of my identity. I was having an identity crisis, and I did some things in order to be connected to a person or to be connected to a thing. Or I went along with some things in order to be accepted. Whatever that may be, whether it's an action or somebody we're connected to. My prayer is that in due time that is removed. That was my prayer going into this year. Was, God, whoever I'm not supposed to be, and whomever is not supposed to be in my life, keep him in 2021. Keep him in 2020. Because in this season, we don't have time to mess around with stagnant anything whatsoever. We don't have time for it. And so now is the time, 7 days in, to get to it. And don't allow anybody else to tell you when to start. You start when you feel that you are ready to start. Whether that is healing from a long tumultuous relationship that made a turn for the worse. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it may be. But whatever it is, it's never too late to start. And start at your own time, your own pace. Don't allow anybody to rush your healing and your progression. And don't allow anybody to rush you into knowing your identity. Getting away from an identity crisis takes time. It takes time. It takes mettle. It takes some consistency. It takes some accountability, self-accountability. And so I encourage you going into this weekend, to the second weekend of this year, to really take the time to ask these questions of the past, present, and future, and see where you were, see where you are, and see where you could potentially be. I know I'm going to be personally doing that throughout this weekend as well, and I'll be doing it with you and seeing what answers I get for myself. And I would encourage you to do the same. Just figure out what answers you have for yourself and write them down. I encourage you to write things down. Any questions that I have, write them down and reflect and read over them throughout the weekend when you get some time in the midst of the hustle and bustle of life. Take a chance and look at it. So with that being said, thank you for joining me for this episode. I really appreciate you all. We'll be back next Tuesday, same time, as we continue this series entitled, I Am. Hey, listen, thank you for joining the show today. Don't forget to follow the show page and my personal page. The show page is 22_podcast. That is 22_podcast on Instagram. And my personal page at AlexJ_live. That is AlexJ_live. Please don't forget the 22 podcast has merch. That's on 22apparel.threadless.com. That is 22apparel.threadless.com. See you soon.